what you gain by stopping doing something, right? Which could be significant, could be really, really, truly significant. There might be a immediate impact on your bottom line because you're not spending money doing it anymore, or you're replacing, or you're increasing productivity of your workforce, whatever that is. But also, once you free your mind of that attention sucker and you put that creative energy into something that actually does make sense, beautiful things happen. I've seen it all the time.
I think that there's often two steps to actually making a do not do list useful. Now, the first thing is identifying the things that you just don't need to do anymore. And the report that's been generated every day for the last 10 years that no one ever reads. That's an easy one. But the problem is a lot of them are not so easy to actually deal with. So identifying them is just the first step. Say you identify something that you really, it's just stupid. There's no point in doing it anymore. It serves no value. Often there's actually an investment required to be able to stop doing it. Welcome back to CardCast, the podcast where Milan and I pick a card at random from a deck of cards just like this. Let's pick a card at random and let's go.
And the winner is the Don't Do List. It's a diamond card, which means it's something about value, whether we're talking money or time, because that is the same thing in our lives, pretty much. So this card came from the realization of how much we do for one reason only, and that is because we've always done it, and how little we question whether what we are doing is actually moving us towards our goals. We did have that brief conversation in the Impossible Goal card a couple of episodes back. But this one is specifically about that little piece, right? Which is, hey, what are the things that we are deciding not to do in favor of the things that should be the priority, have the return on investment, are moving us towards our goal, because there is only so much time we can put into, or energy or attention we can put into any of those things. How do you see this play out in your practice, Jim?
I think everyone knows what a to-do list is. And everyone has a to-do list or probably several. And there's probably a load of things on there that are overdue or should have been done by now, or just not getting the focus and the attention that they deserve. And that's probably because they don't have a do not do list. And the power of the do not do list is actually thinking about, what are the things I'm currently doing that I should stop doing? What are the things I'm doing that serve no purpose or don't add value or don't add enough value? Because even if we're doing something that adds a little bit of value, we're taking capacity and we're taking time away from things that might add a lot more value. So there's an opportunity cost here. So I use a tool called Start, Stop, Keep. A lot of us coaches do. And the do not do is the stop bit in the Start, Stop, Keep. So it's something I do regularly, not necessarily every quarter, but I certainly do it at least every 6 months. And I find that it'd be interesting to see what you experience. The first time a leadership team does it, they actually get very little out of the don't do bit, because they haven't actually got their head around stopping stuff, because they've just always done it. They haven't actually thought about the things that they could stop doing if they chose to.
Well, my experience with the Start, Stop, Keep, and maybe it's the way I'm coaching it, and I need to change that, is that I get a lot of intangibles. In terms of not something that will waste us time, but more like a change in behavior that is required. Like let's stop gossiping. Like, come on, like really, right? Yes, but if it's a problem in the organization, then it obviously needs to be addressed, and I feel that those are valuable just to surface them, if anything else. But the do not do list is really, we're talking about activities that are taking time, they're taking effort, sometimes they're taking money, right? It could be somebody's job that's completely, useless. in the big scheme of things. Their time could be used for something better, or they can be doing the something a different company which would actually have a need for that, and we have it only because it's still because it always has been, and nobody thought about whether it still creates the value that we want. I was really trying to think about the opposite term of opportunity cost, right? Because opportunity cost is a cost of doing something because you're not doing something else. But this is almost like the do not do list has a opportunity revenue or
Deficit,
opportunity
deficit.
opportunity income, however you want to call it, right? It's like what you gain by stopping doing something, right?
Yeah.
Which could be significant, could be really, really, truly significant. Um, Both in the terms of there might be a immediate impact on your bottom line because you're not spending money doing it anymore, or you're replacing, or you're increasing productivity of your workforce, whatever that is. But also the hidden value, which is again, like, once you free your mind of that attention sucker and you put that creative energy into something that actually does make sense in the long term, beautiful things happen. I've seen it all the time.
Yeah, I think there's often two steps to actually making a do not do list useful. Now, the first thing is identifying the things that you just don't need to do anymore, and sometimes people identify just stupid stuff. The report that's been generated every day for the last 10 years that no one ever reads. That's an easy one. But the problem is a lot of them are not so easy to actually deal with. So identifying them is just the first step. Say you identify something that you really, it's just stupid. There's no point in doing it anymore. It serves no value. Often there's actually an investment required to be able to stop doing it. You've either got to give it to someone else, or you've got to untangle something, or you've got to change a process, or something like that. So it's often not quite as easy as just putting stuff down on a do not do list. You then got to expend the effort to be able to stop doing it. And that's often why things stay on people's do not do lists, because it's easier to just keep doing it than it is to actually stop doing it. Have you come across that?
100%, 100%. And I think that the bias, we call it bias for action, right? We also discussed that before, is that all the glory comes to those who start something new successful. So the energy goes there. And it's so much easier to start something new than to stop something that was happening there, because we just don't go there. It seems like a opposite of creativity, right? It seems like who wants to dig through that? It's fine, and we build on top of that. But really going back and editing. It reminded me of Hemingway, actually. He said, like, create, I'm paraphrasing, he said, create drunk, edit sober, right? It requires different state of mind, right? Which I think applies here. We need to learn and create triggers that help us to get into that state of mind that allows us to edit what we are already doing. And in the card, we're discussing some ways of some companies what they did to surface those, to create time and space to think about identifying the shit we shouldn't be doing because it's working. And sometimes the leadership doesn't know, right? Because that activity is completely invisible to them. So you need to empower the whole team to say, hey, why are we doing this? Does it really make sense? Right? Can we just think about it for 5 seconds before we commit another month to that project, right? Whatever that is. So what we need is to promote mechanisms in the organization that will allow us to identify those things so we can actually give it a space. Also reminded me about you know who Rory Sutherland is?
I don't think I do.
Fantastic chap, ex Ogilvy, Atman. I would love his take on today's state of AI. He did a beautiful speech on the creative side of AI a while ago. But in another one, I remember him bringing up the concept of a chief detail officer. That would be a person in the company who has unlimited powers to make changes and demand changes of people, but have zero budget to do that, right? So literally, their job is just to look and edit, effectively, right?
I'm not sure if I'm sure. Well, I'm sure you are familiar with Elon Musk's engineering process, and maybe that's a separate card that we can dive into in more detail. Proper attribution, of course, but step one is always asking the question: why are we doing this? Does it need to be done? And and it's something. So go.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But the dangers in this, I was thinking about this like, 30 seconds ago in the same thing. But the point is that it's the qualification process of whether or not to do something that you are planning to do. And in that process, it's great, right? But the discipline to go back to something you're already doing and tirelessly investigate and reinvestigate
Yep.
and reintegrate the reality to whether or not it still makes sense, even though it might have been a great idea 15 minutes ago, is where the difficulties start and where the do not do list and the mechanism to create and maintain it is extremely important, because again, this thinking doesn't come naturally to us as humans.
Yep. And if you've read his biography, so it's a great read. It's a long read.
Spark
He
is no
goes,
part, yeah.
yeah, he is obsessive about that, and he pushes back and he says, okay, who made this decision? Go and find who made this decision. And it could take days, weeks sometimes to find out who made the decision, but in the end, the decision was, oh no, we did that because of this, and no, that's not necessary anymore. So you need to know who made the decision, and you need to be able to find a way of getting back to that decision process so it can be challenged, because often engineering decisions are made on the basis of best knowledge at the time, and if that changes, the decision could be completely irrelevant now.
Yeah, or best knowledge available to that person at that time through whatever
Yeah,
reasons, right?
yeah,
Whether they didn't do that, right? It doesn't really matter how you got there. What matters is how you get out of it.
yeah. So there's a very simple team exercise that you can go through to actually work through things that you can stop doing, things for your do not do list. And it really is as simple as give everyone a sheet of paper or a virtual whiteboard or whatever, and then get them to write down stickies. Almost expect them to be ridiculous, just outrageous statements that you think could be worthwhile stopping. We should stop producing P&Ls. Well, that's not going to get up, but there'll be other things that might be more sensible. Maybe looking at that in more detail. You should stop sending them to everyone who don't read them. Okay, maybe that's the thing. So write them all down. Then you've got to go through those one by one and triage them. Some you're going to discard. Crazy idea, or not yet, or put this on the do not do next year list. And you should probably have one of those too. And then as a leadership team, actually make some decisions about what things you're going to put in process. Now, what are the things you're actually going to stop doing, and what do you need to do to make that happen? Some of them will be a stroke of the pen. Some of them will be like, let's just not create that weekly report anymore. Okay, done. You've just saved yourself some time. Yep. Others you might actually have
Some of
to
them will be a
schedule.
change to SOP
Yep.
of some kind, right?
Yep. That's right.
And replacing one type of input with another. Like absolutely.
Yeah.
Ask the questions, right? Like dive into it. Even if it looks ridiculous, sometimes there is more behind it. It just looks ridiculous on that little piece of paper, but the thought behind it is much less so. So it might be worth a conversation, like what did the person mean by this? That's quite interesting, and find out that the gems could be hidden, behind the third or fifth why question you're going to ask about a piece of paper.
Yeah. And I think one last tip that teams often miss is, with the time that you've freed up, you should make a considered decision about where that time should now go. Yeah. Now that's not necessarily, scheduling something. It's saying, okay, I'm stopping doing this, and in stopping doing that, I am devoting that time in the service of this other thing, this higher value thing that I think is worth more effort, more time, more resources. Because otherwise, you stop doing something, all that happens is everything else you have to do just expands to fill the void.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even if the time is okay, I'll go home earlier, or I'll spend the time learning. I think it's a really, really good commitment. I would like to add one more thing. The exercise is great to start that thinking and surfacing it, but I think that what is really important is an ongoing process. Think Kaizen of constant improvement of what's happening in the company. So give, whether it's a box in the office, or if it's a specific email address or specific channel in Slack, whatever it is that the organization is, where it's dedicated and everybody knows it. If you see something you think we shouldn't be doing, no judgment, no filter, just drop it in there so we can think about it and we can get better over time.
So in summary, you probably have a to-do list, but you should also have a do not do list. Make a conscious decision and effort around things that you should stop doing.
It will take some investment of time and attention, if nothing else. However, it's probably the highest ROI activity you can think of in the short term.